kind introduction. I'll start with recognizing Dr. Shamshad Akhtar, Chairperson, PICG, Madam Shafaq Azim, the President, the CIO, PICG. I believe 180 odd or plus online participants. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. It's a privilege to be here today to share my thoughts on integrating sustainability into corporate strategy and long-term value creation. I would begin by commending PICG for successfully convening the second ESG conference following the impactful inaugural event last year. PICG's continued leadership in sustaining this national dialogue on ESG is both timely and commendable, and SECP is pleased to support PICG in this drive. I'm also pleased to see that speakers over the past 2 days are leaders in their respective sectors and have brought deep knowledge, insight, and perspective to this important conversation. During the last 2 days, conference speakers have reiterated their sustainability is no longer a feel-good side agenda. It has become a defining element of corporate strategy, capital allocation, and regulatory oversight. Therefore, it is imperative not whether to act, but how stakeholders of capital market align their businesses models with this shift or risk falling behind in an increasingly sustainability-driven global economy. Globally, companies that fail to align with ESG priorities are facing increased regulatory scrutiny, investor divestment, and reputational risk. At the same time, we are witnessing an evolution beyond mere disclosures towards measurable impact, data comparability, and enhanced accountability. As regulators are demanding clarity in ESG data, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD), global policy standard setter for best practicing, is arguing companies to shift from just reporting to measurable performance, and leading investors are integrating ESG metrics into their risk pricing, loan covenants, and investment mandates. This is not just happening in advanced economies. Countries like Malaysia, South Africa, and Brazil have already embedded ESG into their regulatory supervision framework. Complementing these efforts, large companies are actively integrating sustainability into their supply chains, governance practices, employee policies, and long-term business models, reinforcing the strong business case for ESG as both a strategic and operational imperative. Take Natura & Co, for example, a Brazilian multinational that has embedded ESG into every layer of its business, from sourcing sustainable raw materials to achieving carbon neutrality, issuing sustainability-linked bonds, and integrating DEI goals into executive performance. The results: the global capital access, customer trust, and regulatory recognition. This is the direction the world is moving, and Pakistan cannot afford to lag behind. At SECP, we began our ESG journey in 2022 with ESG regulatory roadmap, which laid the foundation for structured reforms. Since then, we have introduced ESG regulatory guidelines aligned with global best practices, IFRS S1 and S2 sustainability standards now adopted for phase 1 implementation, the ESG Sustain portal, a centralized platform for ESG and gender data reporting, Green Bond and Green Bond guidelines, sustainability-aligned regulatory sandboxes, strategic partnership for collaboration, and increasing visibility of reforms. But more importantly, we are not regulating from the top. We are co-creating solutions with market participants, development partners, and professional institutions like PICG, which play an invaluable role in the bridging regulations and governance. Now let me address a crucial dimension of today's theme, i.e. integration of sustainability considerations. Integration means ESG is not confined to a sustainability report or delegated to a single department. It must be embedded in strategy, risk management, product development, capital allocation, and corporate culture. Therefore, SECP, through amendments in Code of Corporate Governance, requires Board of Directors to assume oversight of ESG risks and opportunities as core fiduciary responsibility, ensure ESG is reflected in KPIs, investment decisions, and risk frameworks, integrate ESG and DEI objectives into executive performance evaluation, engage with stakeholders, and disclose ESG outcome with transparency and assurance. This is where institutions like PICG plays a transformational role. Personally, I believe that PICG as a standard-setting body holds significant potential to influence boardroom practices, elevate governance standards, and deepen awareness of emerging best practices across the corporate landscape. Therefore, we had advised PICG to add the sustainability as one of the core areas in its directors training program, and also included PICG as a key stakeholder in ESG reforms. Through board evaluations, directors training programs, and corporate governance codes, PICG can equip board members with the tools and awareness needed to understand ESG materiality, provide sector-specific ESG toolkits to translate policy into action, assist in integrating ESG priorities into business planning, enterprise risk, and internal controls, collaborate with SECP in defining board-level ESG accountability framework. I encourage PICG to continue to collaborate actively with boards to share best practices, explore global trends, and reflect on challenges. Let me address an unavoidable truth. The companies that will survive and thrive in the coming decades will be those that are climate resilient, socially inclusive, and transparent. Here I would like to highlight that ESG should not be seen as something which is driven by West or any other agenda or a body. But I think purely if you look at from Pakistan's perspective and Pakistan's point of view, these are imperative on their own, irrespective whatever is happening globally, something which we have to adopt and we have to measure ourselves against. Therefore, for companies in Pakistan must now align their operations with net zero and climate adaptation goals, supply chains that are environmentally friendly, fair, and reduce carbon emission, workforces with inclusive, safe, and flexible practices, product and services with ESG conscious consumers and investors. In this context, companies must treat sustainability not as a compliance cost, but as a competing advantage. As we talk about sustainability, we must also acknowledge that gender diversity is not just a social goal, it is a strategic imperative for companies, corporate resilience, innovation, and long-term profitability. Extensive research by McKinsey, IFC, and World Economic Forum confirm that the companies with gender diverse leadership are more likely to outperform peers in governance, innovation, and ESG outcomes. Yet in Pakistan, women remain significantly underrepresented in capital markets, whether as investors, board members, or entrepreneurs. This gap is not just a loss of talent, it is missed economic opportunity. We cannot achieve inclusive or sustainable development if half the population is excluded from the financial decision making. To address this, SECP has recently circulated the draft of Women EquiSmart Policy 2528 for stakeholder feedback. This pioneering cross-sectoral framework is structured around 6 strategic pillars: enhancing women leadership across boards and senior engagement, promoting gender-smart financial products and services, facilitating women entrepreneurship through digital access and financing, fostering inclusive workplace through recognition of family-friendly practices, institutionalizing gender disaggregated data and reporting via ESG Sustain, and lastly, capacity building and mentorship through structured programs and partnership. I'm pleased to share that SECP is also facilitating partnership between PICG and multilateral organizations to develop a women-centric leadership program aimed at fostering more inclusive and diverse corporate leadership in Pakistan. The goal is not tokenism but transformation. SECP envisions a capital market ecosystem where gender equity is embedded in corporate governance, product design, and workforce development. Taking this opportunity, today we strongly encourage all regulated entities, market infrastructure institutions, corporate leaders to view women EquiSmart draft and actively contribute to shaping a more inclusive future. I will also touch upon our national priorities. Pakistan has committed ambitious climate goals through National Determined Contribution (NDCs) under the Paris Agreement. As the regulator, SECP is aligning its ESG reforms with these national priorities by aligning ESG guidelines with Pakistan Green Taxonomy, encouraging sustainability-linked capital market instruments such as Green Sukuk, gender bonds, integrating climate risk disclosures within regulatory framework through adoption of sustainability standard, and most importantly, enhancing the visibility of ESG performance through the ESG Sustain dashboard as well as global collaboration. Dear participants, I will conclude by emphasizing that advocacy sessions like this ESG conference must go beyond simply sharing information. They should focus on preparing institutions to take meaningful action. Preparation of a market landscape where ESG compliance will determine access to capital, brand credibility, and global partnerships. SECP remains committed to working with all stakeholders, public-private development partners to build a transparent, inclusive, and future-ready capital market. I invite all board members, CEOs, CFOs, and market leaders to use this moment to prioritize ESG as a business imperative, not a peripheral responsibility. I extend my sincere appreciation to PICG for organizing this impactful conference and for bringing together voices from across the ESG ecosystem to advance this important dialogue. Sustaining this momentum is essential to building a capital market that is investor-ready, climate resilient, socially inclusive, and globally competitive. Thank you.